So a person has to make that decision somewhere to do the work and understanding it's not going to be easy, But another thing is that the bad habits start off easy, but the end result is very difficult, like the addiction maybe from drugs or alcohol or the heart attack from the diet or whatever, the result down the road makes life very difficult. Where it was so easy and maybe a lot of fun in the beginning and senses were stimulated and, wow, I like this. But it leads to a dark, end. Whereas the good habits, like we've said, are difficult in the beginning, maybe a struggle, really determined, but in the end, it is a very, very beneficial result.
Hey there, welcome back to the Breaking Trail podcast. Ruben here and my friend and teacher Balakia. This is where you learn to navigate life's journey through ancient wisdom. And today you'll learn about habits, the good, the bad, and the ugly, how you can turn some bad habits into good habits and invest in your future well-being in this way.
About the effect diet has on COVID. And the 4 categories was plant-based diet, and then plant-based diet plus pescatarian, which means fish, plants plus fish. Then the baseline diet was just basically conventional meat, whatever diet. And then the 4th category was a low-carb diet, which is basically all meat, the paleo diet and these various ones where you basically eliminate carbohydrates. And so the study was, what effect does the diet have on your chances of severe or moderate to severe COVID result? Once you get COVID, what does the diet have to do with it? So it was found in this study, and it's quite a large study. I don't remember the numbers, but you can look it up if you want later.
Yeah, probably later.
But anyway, the results showed that on the plant-based diet, you had a 73% better chance of not getting moderate or severe COVID. On the plant-based plus fish, and they didn't add many participants to the plant-based diet. It was only like 40 or something more people that was in the category of plant-based plus fish, but it increased the percentage up to 62. Let me think. 60. What is 40? 60. 59. So it increased from 73% less likely to get severe COVID to 59. Then the baseline diet was just like, it's probably going to go to moderate to severe COVID. And then when they went to the low-carb diet, it went past the baseline. Like it was 1.48 or 148% more likely to get moderate to severe COVID on this low-carb diet.
Wow.
So the plant-based diet was way, way, way superior as far as protection against COVID once you've got it.
Yeah.
And just adding the fish increased the possibility of a more problematic situation quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then when you went to low carb, it went off the scale, like 148% more chance of getting moderate and severe case of COVID. So yeah, I mean, the whole report there it's not really long. You can put a link to it if you want, Ruben.
Yeah, I'll do that.
But it's only like 12-minute video, so it's very precise and to the point. It's not like you got to spend 2 hours to figure it out.
Mm.
And there's quite easy to read graphs there to make it very easily understandable.
I really hope that this will, be known because this is amazing.
It probably won't. I mean, it'll probably get buried just like everything else that shows something good, something outside the normal or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But the point that I always like to make in this kind of a situation is that the Vedas, their teaching is vegetarian diet is the best. This is how you should eat, and it's not like you have to have a lot of tests and everything to prove it. It's just when the Vedic information is presented, it's normally accepted as true. And by those who accept the Vedas as sources of truth. But over time, and especially now when people are doing more and more research to prove this and to prove that and so on, it just comes back to the same point. The Vedas were right all along. So whether it's in this case of COVID or whether it's in the environmental impact, how much less of environmental impact a vegetarian plant-based diet has, or whatever situation you look at, it always comes out that what the Vedas said and have said is correct.
Yeah, but that's, that can be hard for us to handle maybe because it requires us to change. Like if we see those facts, then we're like, oh, we have to do something.
Well, that's up to the individual. I mean, you want to improve your life, then here's information on how to do that. And some people do.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't. A lot of people are not interested in changing anything.
Yeah.
I'm going to eat this diet and it's going to give me a heart attack probably, and I've already had 3 bypass surgeries and whatever, but I don't care. I'm going to eat it because I like meat or I like, the way I'm living now. Yeah. Fine, that's your choice, But maybe there's, a smaller group of people who say, wow, I don't want to be in that condition of bypasses and heart attacks and, severe cases of COVID and, debilitations of one type or another. So this is, kind of a impetus for me to change, follow these guidelines. And this is just one small category. This is just body health.
Yeah.
But it gives you some background of the authenticity of the Vedas. It begins to make, well, if they're right about that, the other things they say, very well could be right also.
Mm-hmm.
And if I follow that, then I'll be following an authorized system of truth, a guideline that's going to help me in not just health, physical health, but also mental health. And also, I can do the right thing for the environment, or, I can make my life better in connection with my relationships with others. And I can be a better person, and I can understand more and more. Maybe I'm not really this material body, and all those things. It's just kind of a domino effect. One thing leads to the next, to the next, to the next.
But
moving us up.
But I thought that was an interesting point. You just said when you started, you're saying this Marcus had a talk about habits and how the link between habits and our personal relationships to others. You said that he's mentioned something like that. I thought that was an interesting twist to it. We normally don't see it in that way.
Well, yeah, we usually usually don't see things in the right light, so to speak, because the people who are shining the light, are shining it on the wrong information or the wrong things. So we just see what we're allowed to see. And, but anyway, Marcus Rothkranz, he's got a lot of information. He's got his website and so on about health. I mean, his main focus is health, but he also incorporates some other areas of life that are, oftentimes constructive. And so he had this video on habits. And he said, again, there's a few people who want to improve their life in one category or another. Maybe they just want to lose weight, or maybe, they want to improve their financial situation, or maybe they want to improve their relationships with, those close to them or just in general, etc., because they understand that what's going on now is there's room for improvement, so to speak. But people want just something instant. They want to take a pill. I want to lose weight. I just want to take a pill, a weight loss pill. Yeah. I don't want to have to go through a whole change of diet and do some hard work, or I want to get rich scheme. So, I can boom, get rich very quick, invest a little and get huge returns, Or I just want people to like me the way I am and I don't want to change, and da-da-da. In other words, we don't want to do the work. This is the point.
Yeah.
But really, if you look at people who are actually successful in whatever category you look at, there's a lot of hard work that led to that. And so the point is, we all have a lot of habits. I mean, our life revolves around habits. And usually when people think of habits, they think of bad habits, So we have the bad habits of smoking or drinking or drug use or, being, harsh to other people or whatever. Obviously not good. And a habit is created by just repeating something over and over again. The alcoholic didn't become an alcoholic, the first beer, but after beer and, vodka after vodka and so on, it becomes a habit which leads to an addiction.
Yeah.
And actually, he pointed out that Time magazine, this idea of habits is so dynamic or important that Time magazine did a separate little booklet on the power of habits.
Oh, wow.
And then they did another booklet on the power of addiction. See? And it's connected. There's a connection here. So habits are very, very strong and basically control our lives, whether they're good habits or bad habits. But the bad habits are often very easy to get into. You don't have to do a lot of hard work. You just smoke a few cigarettes or, and you start getting into the habit, or the alcohol or, the relationship problems. And it becomes a habit to be not nice.
Yeah.
And it's easy to be not nice.
and once you've done it once, it's not a big thing to do it twice or 3 times or, like for every time, it's just becomes easier to follow that pattern.
Exactly. And pretty soon you got a habit.
Yeah.
But the good habits oftentimes take a lot of work, in the beginning, it's really difficult. Let's just say you want to lose weight. Well, the diet pill is easy to take, but the change of diet and the whole regime that goes with that and losing weight, really, and so it doesn't come back and so on, it takes a lot of hard work. So the first day, it's kind of like, a novelty. Like, oh, this is, cool. But the second day, third day, it becomes hard because you've got the old habits that you keep referring back to and the addictions and oh, I remember I'd like to see, but you have to be strong. And after a point of time of doing the right thing, whether it's diet or whatever, then it becomes easier and easier and easier until finally it becomes a habit, and now it's just on, automatic pilot. It just kind of goes on its own. And you don't really have to think about it. It's just what you do. This is my new norm.
New normal. Mm.
You see? So a person has to make that decision somewhere to do the work and understanding it's not going to be easy, But another thing is that the bad habits start off easy, but the end result is very difficult, like the addiction maybe from drugs or alcohol or the heart attack from the diet or whatever, the result down the road makes life very difficult. Where it was so easy and maybe a lot of fun in the beginning and senses were stimulated and, wow, I like this. But it leads to a dark, end. Mm. Whereas the good habits, like we've said, are difficult in the beginning, maybe a struggle, really determined, but in the end, it is a very, very beneficial result. Okay? Mm. And so the point was make long-term investments instead of short-term investments. In relationships or whatever, oh, this is going to be a flash in the pan relationship. Just get in, enjoy, it's not a long-term investment, see. But it doesn't lead to any good result. But a long-term investment, and you work on that investment and you invest a lot of time and energy in it,
exactly,
has a very good result. And that's the whole concept of spiritual life. In Bhagavad Gita, which we refer to a lot, it says, that which is very, tastes very sweet in the beginning leads to very bitter in the end. In other words, it diminishes in pleasure, it diminishes, in attraction, etc., and it winds up being very bitter, And that's, life in the mode of ignorance and passion. But that which is, maybe even be very bitter in the beginning, gradually leads to more and more sweetness and more happiness and more real pleasure, and so on. And so that's a spiritual concept, to break out of our old material habits and addictions, and embark on a real, true spiritual journey, is not going to be easy. But when you do it with some conviction and determination, and so on, then it becomes easier and easier and brighter and more fulfilling, and so you're impelled from within, and it's again a Vedic truth that is played out in this concept of habits.
It just comes to my mind. I remember a friend of mine when we were when I was young, we used to always bike around the city. Like that's what was how you got around. In the winter, there was a lot of snow, and often they would plow the roads first and not prioritize the bike roads, So the bike roads were often a lot of snow on the bike roads. And we were, there was always like one, usually when you had some snow there was usually like one track that was like where most people went, and you had two choices. Either you could try to follow that track, and it was kind of like easy going because there was no loose snow, but at the same time you were kind of falling to the sides all the time because you're trying to like stay into this wheel. So it's kind of, in a sense, you were just floating along, but in a sense it was a lot of struggle on the way as well because you were falling to the side. Or you could like head out of the trail, but then there was a lot of work required to do that because you had to go through the deep snow, but it was much easier to follow your direction.
Right.
Just that analogy just came to my mind right now.
Right. Kind of like the breaking trail concept.
It's exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you can apply these truths in many, many different situations, because truth is truth, isn't it? And, it can be applied here, it can be applied here, it can be applied another place. And again, that's why our Vedic teaching is filled with truth. And if you accept that truth and try to apply it, you'll find many categories where it's applicable. Not just one thing.
No, and what you said in the beginning, like, because we can't prove everything with material science, cannot prove everything. I guess only a small part. It can, like, catching up and prove, like, for example, the benefits of vegetarian diet in terms of health and COVID. But if you see that proof, then maybe you can think like, oh, so maybe, the other things that I cannot yet prove, I can even implement those things and, follow those things, because this seems logical that this will produce a good result.
Exactly. And back to the habits, the Bhakti system that we follow and promote, is filled with guidelines of daily lifestyles. And it's recommended that you do this every day. So just coming from, everyday life, so to speak, this seems like very difficult. Get up early in the morning, for instance.
Yeah.
I mean, for some people, that's like pulling teeth. I mean, this is really hard, but you do it, and it's a struggle. And you'd really much rather be sleeping maybe, but the alarm goes off. And you've already decided the night before when that alarm goes off, at this time, that's the time to get up, take your bath, shower, and then do your meditation.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've already decided that before you went to sleep.
Yeah.
But then that decision might not look so good when the alarm goes off. Like, oh, but now I'm too tired, I don't feel. But you do it anyway. You get up anyway. And you do this over time, and that time period of the day becomes normal to get up. It's when you get up, and it's not like hard anymore. It used to be so difficult maybe. Now it's not hard at all. You just get up, and you've got your routine already set. Get up, go, take your shower, come in, sit down, do your meditation, whatever you've designed your schedule around. Maybe do some hatha yoga in there, go for a walk and do some japa meditation with beads, out in nature, see the sunrise every day, and so on. Of course, Norway, this is like, in winter, it's like you never see it, but, in normal places where the sun does come up.
Normal places. Thank you.
Yeah, some things, don't apply as far as the time of day in Norway exactly, because it's summer, it never goes down, and winter never comes up. But in general, you're up at that time, and so it's like you don't even have to think about it. So it just becomes automatic. It's just like on cruise control.
And and one thing that you're saying that's kind of important, I think, is that what you do in that sense is you sort of honor your decision. like you made a decision and then you follow it. But if you keep making a decision and not following it, then the next time it will be like, oh, but my decision, I just, whatever, I can do something else. But you know what I mean? Like if you start to get into that habit of like, no, but I made the decision, so I'm going to do that. Because the night before I was in a proper state of mind, I was relaxed, I was determined, I know what I wanted, and I'm going to follow that. That's the decision I made. You know?
Exactly. That's a good point. Yeah, and you develop a good habit of honoring your decisions.
Exactly.
You know, you make decisions based on a clear mind. You know, it's not just some spontaneous impulse thing that could be very wrong. You're not going on emotion and sentiment and whatever, but it's a conscious decision. Okay, I'm going to follow this process. It recommends getting up at this time. That's a conscious decision, and you honor that. That gives you what many people would call willpower.
Yeah.
That's a habit too.
Yeah.
It builds strength, you know. So once you make a decision, you stick to that decision. You know, and like when I go hiking in the mountains, I kind of plan where I'm going to go before I go. And I like to stick to that plan. You know, some people like to go and then they change plans all over the place. Oh, I'm too tired, so I'm not going to do that. Or, you know, that looks for me, I'm going to go there. But I'm the kind of guy that, okay, I've decided this is what I'm going to do. And I try to stick to that plan. You know, if I want to go to another place, I'll do that next time. You know, and I don't know. It's just kind of the way I am. But it works out well. You know, I'm not all over the place. My mind's just telling me, oh, well, don't do that, do this, you know. And so, okay, I do that. And then the mind says, well, maybe do this instead of that.
And maybe this road will be better. And maybe...
You're just all over the place.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
And so it can apply to any part of our life and its decision-making and honoring that.
But that's also what I do when I go out for hikes, like in terms of weather, because I know some people, they care so much about what the weather is going to be like. And if the weather is going to be bad, then they're not going to go out. And I tend to just like, okay, well, of course, if it's going to be storm and really terrible and dangerous, then I have to reconsider. But if it's just going to be, if it's about rain or sun, you know, I bring the same gear anyway, because you never know what the weather is going to be. And then I just go out there and, you know, do my...
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. You just go out and, you know, what happens, and you just deal with it as it goes.
Yeah.
But just last week, you know, we were in that second category you mentioned where we got up to a point and then this storm came in, full snowstorm. And,
oh, wow.
You know, wind was blowing so hard and, you know, it was cold. I mean, this is, June 26th? You know, usually you don't have snowstorms in June, but in the high mountains you do. So we got to a point and we had to turn around because it was just not smart to go up on this exposed ridge and, you know, you could get blown off or visibility was coming in and out of a cloud. So sometimes it was really, really limited visibility. And, you know, it just wasn't a smart decision to follow the plan.
No.
So again, you have to reassess and say, well, you know, these conditions dictate a different plan. We'll go back down and come back and do it next week, which we're going to do.
Oh, yeah. But that's a nice analogy for life as well. Like, because you're not the supreme controller yet. Like, you can't control the situation around you. So you try to like do things in this way that we said, like the habits, but then things may change. And then you might have to reconsider if it's really, really necessary. You might have to.
Yeah. Right. I mean, you can't be so stuck in concrete that you can't adjust. You know, whether it's in the mountains or in whatever. I mean, sometimes getting up early is just not the best plan if you're really sick and your body needs that time to rest and recover.
Exactly.
You know, then you have to consider, well, here's an unusual situation that makes it so I have to adjust a little bit. You know, you can't be a fanatic. You know, it's fanaticism in any category is a negative. And again, in Bhagavad Gita, you know, Lord Krishna says, you know, yoga is not for the man who eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or sleeps too little. You know, in other words, middle of the road kind of thing, not extremism on either side. You know, because when you start getting into this extreme consciousness, then that's self-defeating. You know?
Then what normally happens when you do that is that thing becomes like the reason itself and not the goal, the end goal that you want to get to with doing that thing. You know what I mean? It's like... I
do, yeah. You know, and then it becomes sometimes a source of false pride. You know, you're bragging about, you know, the extreme situation or activity or habit or whatever it is that you have. You know, it's a way to boost your false ego. You know, look at me. You know, so that's also self-defeating, especially in yoga. You know, because false pride is an enemy of true spiritual advancement. You know, humility is the goal. You know, that's how you become successful. You know, and so, it just reminds me of, you know, on the North Shore in Hawaii in the mid to late 60s, big wave surfing was just kind of really getting going. You know, I mean, really big stuff like Waimea Bay and 20 plus foot waves. And, you know, people previously had kind of looked at that kind of conditions and thought nobody could ride that. Nobody could surf that, you know. But then a few guys ventured out and, you know, found out that they could, and they had to redesign the boards because the boards that are working in smaller waves don't work in those conditions. So it required some scientific analysis of how the boards need to be shaped and the length and the width and whatever. So in other words, it was evolving. You know, now it's at a high level of, you know, development. But at that time, it was evolving. And so there was one guy, and I can't even remember his name, but he was one of the big wave surfers. But he was kind of a loner guy. And there was a story that he went out in some very big surf alone. And he went out and he surfed that day. Somebody just happened to be, and it wasn't like just a small handful of guys that were in this category. And somebody saw him. He went out very early in the morning, and he surfed very big surf that day, and came in and went about his business and never told anybody about it. He didn't brag about it. Hey, man, I went at Waimea this morning. It was 20 plus, and, you know, I got 5 waves and whatever. He didn't do that. Nobody even knew he did it, except this one guy happened to observe it, and he exposed the secret. So that's kind of a point that the guy was just doing what he did. You know, he got his own satisfaction from it.
Exactly.
And he wasn't bragging about it to get, you know, people praising him. Wow, you were out alone. You went out at that stuff, man. And I thought that was pretty cool.
I'm also, kind of impressed. Wow.
Yeah, you know, just humble, you know. Wasn't looking for anything other than just the experience.
No, and right now it's even like it's much easier to not be that because of all the social media, for example. I mean, it's promoting you to tell everyone about how wonderful you are in your life and get the likes.
Everything, yes. And this is, again, very adverse to humility, you know. And this was one of the things in that Time magazine booklet on addiction. You know, we think of addictions as drugs and alcohol and whatever, cigarettes. But addiction to praise, you know, addiction to wanting people to glorify you and know who you are and so on. That's a very, very strong addiction,
Wow.
And the social media, people are addicted to their phones. Why? Because there's, Facebook and Instagram and so on like that. And what's that so important? Because I'm there, and I can post, things and make it look like it's an amazing thing I did and whatever, and they're addicted to that. And if they don't get likes, then that addiction makes it so what? They're depressed, They're feeling low self-esteem. Oh, nobody likes me. Nobody likes what I'm doing. Nobody likes my post, and so it just has a negative result all the way across the board.
But that seems like, is there a difference in how you break that habit that causes that addiction as compared to other addictions, or is it the same? You know what I mean? Because that seems...
Well, that kind of addiction is like self-centeredness. I am great, or I want people to think I'm great, even if I know I'm not, or whatever. But when you actually make some progress spiritually, you read the true teachings of what is good for the soul, see, and you try to begin to implement that, and you can see through the illusion, through the smoke screen, that this is going to make me happy, or this happiness that I'm getting from, the likes and all the Instagram fame and so on is actually fake. It's false. It's temporary, and it's just not good for me. You start seeing who you really are. I'm spirit soul. And all of this is just part of the illusion of material world called Maya, And I'm not great. And why should I try to play some game, And, the person that you want, gradually as you progress, and the philosophy promotes this from the beginning, is the person you're really trying to please is the Supreme Lord, And, all of the teachings are humility is the goal, not arrogance. And so you're kind of seeing, well, this is not good for me. All this, attempt to be somebody, materially speaking, is against me, the spirit soul, is against my well-being. And so therefore you start changing things. You develop another habit, and whether gradually you come to a point where it's not what other people think about me. It's what the Lord thinks about me. What does my spiritual master think about me? What am I doing to help other people? And so on. And so this is how you really move past that addiction. You can try to do any of these things mentally, but that's not the goal, to try to just mentally change things. You have to change things in the heart. It's a deeper thing than this surface, mental adjustment kind of thing.
And otherwise,
it's involved. The mind is involved, but it's much more than that.
So if it's not, if it doesn't come out in that field, it will come out in some other field, like an imbalance or in bad habit. Or...
Yeah, and the strength is not there. It's like, a house with no solid foundation, and it just falls down. It eventually collapses. So, yeah, that's again, where we have to do the work is at the root. Not up in the branches somewhere.
Well, what are then, like, if we going back to the habit thing? What are the good habits that we'd like to have, and how do we start implementing those? What are some of the important habits, good habits?
Well, the Bhakti Yoga process has 9 different steps or processes. Activities. The first is hearing. So we make a habit of hearing this truth, see, So that means I have to have a habit of listening to maybe online, presentations like we're presenting, or reading the scriptures, or listening to, our spiritual masters' lectures, etc. I have to hear. Then I have to chant. That's number 2. So I have to make a habit of chanting. See, so chanting the mantras, chanting this truth, like what we're doing now, speaking, this is chanting also. Oh. People think chanting is only singing the mantras, but it means repeating transcendental sound. But the mantras are definitely, what we try to encourage people to do, chant the mantras. So that is a habit that we need to get into. And, many of us have found that after doing this on a regular basis for some time, you want to do this. And if you don't somehow do it, there's something missing. See, there's something missing in your life. Yeah. It's just like bad habits. If you're not doing something bad, something's missing. But this is really of value when you feel like, gee, I need to chant, Or you start getting strength and protection from the chanting when you're having a really bad, situation somehow. I just got a letter from a dear friend of mine, been chanting for many years. And she's got a difficult family situation, taking care of a father that's had, a stroke and has some, mental disturbances as a result of this. Oh. Another person in the family that's also got some mental issues. And, so when you're trying to take care of these people and so on, it's not easy, and so she was having some difficulties mentally, and of course this usually translates into physical difficulties as well. Stress and trauma and so on results in physical adversity. And so anyway, she, realized all this and just started chanting more and more attentively, not just chanting. She was specifically mentioning chanting on her beads, like japa yoga meditation. We've talked about this before. But not only chanting, but chanting more attentively, really focusing on the mantras when she chanted and so on. And, it made everything inside, which was previously so tense and stressed and, some anger there and, all that, it just kind of calmed everything down, and so that, she said, really, really changed everything. The situation is the same externally, but internally now she's got a whole nother outlook on it, another approach to it, and dealing with it in a much different way inside. And so many of her physical problems also went away. She also said she was prescribed some homeopathic treatment that was specifically for reducing stress, people who are under really stressful situations. Yeah. And she said that also was very beneficial, So, yeah, she dealt with it like that. And so this is how you do it. You apply our teachings, and there's where real strength is, on a spiritual level, which also has very, very great benefit on the mental and physical level. And so body, mind, and soul. See, you always hear that term, body, mind, and soul. Mm-hmm. But when the soul is in good shape, so to speak, then the mind and the body will also be nourished. Mm-hmm. And so that's how you do these things. You apply these teachings, remembering the philosophy, reminding yourself when, flare-ups of anger come or whatever, you got to remember the teachings. Humility is the goal. I'm not my body. All this is temporary, etc., etc. You have to remember the teachings and remember the mantras. And then the processes go on. Praying, making offerings, worshiping the Lord, doing practical activity in the service of the Lord. And in this way, they become habits. These practices become habits. And those habits are the strength to take you through. I mean, oftentimes, just like you mentioned with the bike in the snow, or, an example is given to walking through mud. Sticky, deep mud is not easy to walk through. But if you've got your mind on the goal and you're determined and you just keep going, one step, next step, then eventually you get out of the mud.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
It's a way of life that actually produces good results. But if you just throw your hands up, give up, cave into anger and frustration, and, then people who are inclined will, smoke more cigarettes or drink more alcohol or take more drugs or go to the psychiatrist and get more medication for, anxiety and depression and struggles, and they don't really go anywhere. They don't achieve any real strength. They've gone to a source of help that has no real strength, and so they're still weak. But if you take the other approach, which I've referred to, you're gaining strength. You're getting stronger.
Yeah.
And so the adversities come as they always do, but now you're stronger. You're more able to deal with them.
And it just reminds me of the word, bala. Strength is not what we normally think about. Bala, strength in Sanskrit, means spiritual love, doesn't it?
Yeah, it means spiritual strength.
And that's...
And so, the soul is, neglected. So when you neglect the body, it gets weak, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't exercise and work out, and your muscles atrophy. You get weak.
Exactly.
If you don't exercise the mind gets weak. Or if you don't exercise the spiritual self, you also get weak. It just gets covered over, and so there's no strength there. But if it's constant, again, habits, remembrance, chanting, hearing the teachings, and all the other processes, you're getting stronger and stronger. And when you're strong, you feel strong.
And then when you're strong, it's easier to, keep doing that. That becomes a habit, and it's easier to tackle things, and it's easier to not fall into the bad habits that are kind of hanging over us, or
Right. If you've got a habit of sitting on the couch watching TV all day, and a lot of people do have that habit, you just get weaker and weaker. Almost can't get off the couch, and just go downhill. And so you look at the world in a different way, from a perspective of weakness, and helplessness almost. I mountain bike a lot. Well, I haven't since COVID, and the pandemic and all that. But, and mountain biking, especially in the high country, I was mainly in Colorado and places like that, is seasonal. So during the winter, you're not mountain biking, although now more and more people are, using fat bikes, which are, more suitable for riding in the snow. But anyway, usually you're skiing or doing something in winter.
Yeah.
And so when all of this that kind of dissipates and the biking season starts, you're out of shape. You might have skied all winter, but you're out of biking shape. I mean, there's different muscles involved. There's different breathing and everything involved. And so, your first seasonal rides are very difficult. And you look at those hills, and you just go, oh, man, you don't even want to go on some rides because, it's too many climbs and it's too steep. And, and that's your attitude. But you keep going because you like the sport, right? You keep going and you suffer through the early season and, you get more in shape and more fit. And then those hills or those rides that look so intimidating and, just so difficult, you start looking forward to them. Aha, that hill, and you just feel good, like being able to just climb that hill, and feel good at the top. And so it's a whole nother vision. You're looking at the same thing, but from a whole nother perspective. One is a perspective of out of shape or weakness, and the other one is in shape, fit, strong, so on. And that's much more fun. By the end of the season, biking's a lot more fun than it was in the early spring when you were struggling, So it's like that again in life, If you're spiritually strong and you look at those challenges, which are always up and coming, wow, that looks cool. I can meet that challenge. Yeah, I can do that. And you're not hesitating. You're not trying to get around it. You're not trying to duck out. I can meet that challenge, And you do. And you just go through it. It could be a physical challenge, a mental challenge, all kinds of challenges. The material world is full of them. It's no shortage. But you're prepared. You're ready. And all of that makes you even more strong.
Yeah.
So you're just like going on an easier journey.
And if you don't get through your weakness at that first stage of the season, then you never get to that point of strength and the easy times that are coming after the difficult first one, which is it's just a shame.
It's like, if you give up at every little challenge and struggle, oh, this is too hard. Oh, I don't want to do this. Then what are you going to achieve? On any level, physical, mental, or spiritual. So many of these things apply, all the way across the board. These difficult situations build character. We used to say, builds character.
Yeah. It doesn't break you, make you stronger.
Yeah. Well, they say if it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger.
Same.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's, I was looking at Srimad-Bhagavatam again. This is a quote that we were reading about this before, but I was thinking that this was, because it mentions about habits. So this is talking about Kali Yuga, the time period that we are in right now. And Bhaktivedanta Swami says that in Kali Yuga, the duration of life is shortened not so much because of insufficient food, but because of irregular habits. By keeping regular habits and eating simple food, any man can maintain his health. Overeating, over-sense gratification, over-dependence on another's mercy, and artificial standards of living sap the very vitality of human energy. Therefore, the duration of life is shortened. Just like, wow. By keeping regular habits, any man can maintain his health.
Yeah.
Well,
regular habits. But, it's not easy in the beginning.
It's very...
What do you want? You want a good life, or you want to just, a mediocre life, or a life that's just filled with struggle? And You know, what do you want? A person has to make a choice, you know, and that's the unique situation of human form of life. You know, the humans can make very definite choices.
Mm-hmm.
You see, we have that facility, and we're forced to make choices. I mean, it's not like you can go through life and make no choices. You know, it starts in the morning. You got to make a choice to get up or stay in bed. You know, so if we make good choices based on knowledge, then we'll get good results. And if we make a bad choice based on ignorance, then we get bad results. You know? So you're going to make choices anyway. So with knowledge and determination, we can make good choices and get good results. And good results are good results, you know. And we're not talking about, you know, this video that I referred to in the beginning was just limited to the time span we're in this body. You know, this was all about what are you going to do between now and the time you die?
Yeah.
You know, are you going to be successful materially in this way, whatever. But in our teachings, we go beyond the term in this body. Okay, you make choices now that will prepare you for when you leave the body, when you die. The choices we make now will determine the results of where we go when we leave the body. Remembering we're eternal spirit souls. We're not these temporary material bodies. And death is just the soul leaving the body. Nobody's dying here. You know, there's no such thing as death in reality. Death means cease to exist. There's no such thing. You know, the body is always dead. It doesn't die. You know, the body's dead from the beginning to the end. You know, and the only thing that makes it live is the presence of the person in the body, the spirit soul. Spirit is life itself. So when we are in the body, then the body's called alive. Oh, this is alive body. It's not. The body's dead. We're alive. And so death is just when we leave the body. We exit the body. And then the body shows its true nature. It's never was alive. You know, all the things are still present in the body after death as were there before. You know, 1 minute after death, you got all the same ingredients there. You got the brain, you got the heart, you got the circulatory system, you got all the organs, you got the muscles, you got the bones, you got everything. It's still there. There's nothing, it's not there. Nothing disappeared except one ingredient, life. And so that life is the soul. The soul leaves the body. And it continues to live because it's eternal. So are you preparing that? Are you preparing for that moment? So your choices now will make it so when the soul leaves the body, it will be going to hopefully the spiritual world because of the choices you made, the habits you developed and implemented, see, that took you out of that situation in the material world, trapped in a temporary material body, and makes you qualified to return to the spiritual world because of the choices that has made it so you've developed a loving relationship with the Supreme Soul, and this is your desire, and this is what you know you want. This is your destination. Or have you not done any of that and just come back in another material body and stay on the wheel of birth and death? In other words, there's choices that will lead to either one of those two results. And as a human, we can make those choices. But the lower forms of life, they cannot. You know, the dog cannot make such choices. It doesn't know, it can't understand these teachings.
No.
It can't understand its real identity. It can't understand anything about the material world and the spiritual world and, all those things.
And he's just following like the instincts are making his habits, they're just...
Yeah. Nature creates the habits for the lower forms of life. Exactly. Just the natural influences of the modes of nature on the dog or the cat or whatever. And they all have their natures, don't they?
Yeah.
Cats' nature is very different than dogs if you've been around both.
Yeah.
Because it's a different body, and therefore it has different, instinctual, behaviors. But when we get to the human, then it's like, okay, here's full facility, to make choices that will take you back to the spiritual world, your real home. But there's full facility to go down, too, into the more dark regions of consciousness. So, yeah.
But, yeah, well, if you're in for... Because I think anyone listening to this, I think most people we are all of us in some bad habits, I think, for sure. How do you start breaking those, or how do you start moving towards a better direction? Like, I guess the first step is knowing this, like you said, hearing. But
you got to make a choice. You got to make a determined choice. I'm going to do this. And it can start slow. Maybe you're going to start with your diet. Maybe you're going to try to clean up your diet. We've talked about that before. And not overnight become the strictest vegetarian or vegan or whatever, but, gradually, move into a better diet. And, also giving up, just make a decision. I'm going to give up some bad habits that I have. I know they're bad. Some things aren't really obviously bad, but some are very obviously bad. And so you start with the obvious. Okay, that's obviously something that's not good for me. So I'm going to give that up. And maybe you got to kind of wean yourself. It takes a little time, perhaps.
Wean? Like, give it...
Yeah, like a mother weans the kid. It doesn't let the kid suck on her breast, as much as, just less and less frequency until you wean the kid, or dogs wean their puppies, of the milk, put them on more solid food and so on. So anyway, you kind of just gradually, some people can do it quickly. It's individual. Some people can do it quickly. Okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. And they don't do it. That's just it. They don't do it. And other people, it takes them longer. But the more determined and the quicker the better, because some people can use this slow, recommendation as an excuse just to never do it. Oh, I'm working on it. What was that thing one guy said? Yeah, I'm quitting smoking. Every year I smoke 1 cigarette less per day. So this year I smoke 1 less. Next year I'll smoke 2 less. And he dies before he ever quits smoking. So, you can't, if you're determined, you want to do it. You want to do it as quick as possible. If you can, you do.
But that's why can some people change that fast and why not? Is it just the previous experiences and
because of the influence of the modes of nature on them? Some people are more in the mode of ignorance. And for them, it's very difficult to get out of ignorance. Some people more in the mode of passion. So they can be passionate about, the bad things, but they can also, just kind of transfer that passion to the good things.
Mm-hmm.
They can be just as passionate about the good habits as the bad habits. And they're used to really being motivated to do whatever they're doing. That's the mode of passion. And then mode of goodness is, is just an internal, inclination to do good things. That usually they don't have so many bad habits anyway.
Mm.
If you're really in the mode of goodness, a lot of these, things that are normal for most people is like, I don't do that. I never did that. I don't want to do that. Or I did it because everybody was doing it, but it wasn't really that important to me, and it's easy to give it up. Or, So it's different influences of the modes of nature make it so people can do things quickly or not so quickly, or, if they're too covered, maybe not at all. Maybe later, after, who knows how many lifetimes maybe before they can really. So it's stated in Bhagavad Gita, that, some people are really ready for forward movement, spiritually speaking, and some are not. They're just too covered in ignorance and passion for the lower things.
Because this made me think about a friend of mine, Frank. He's just, when he was eating meat, and when he heard about the karma involved in eating meat, he just like on the day stopped eating meat, just like that. It's okay. I hear it. Okay. I'm not gonna eat that stuff because I don't want to get involved in all the karma. Wow. Okay.
And he made a choice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just...
And
But there was something that I thought about that might be nice too, because we were speaking about, and I think that's a good name, maybe, like, habits, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But what, because there's a story that came to my mind about that shows us maybe the difference between bad habits and ugly habits. There's a story about Jaghai and Madhai. I don't know if it's in whatever way, if it's proper to and we can explain it in a nice way, but which habits are just like bad habits and which habits are really ugly habits that are going to take you to a dark place. Because I think that story shows a little bit like the bad habits, and those can be excused, those can be overcome, but the really ugly habits, like criticizing others, they're not as that's the ugly ones, isn't it? Or
criticizing others, and a lot of perversions people have and so on. I mean, they're just like, really dark, and they just take you way, way down. So, you almost can't see. You're just like blind to the truth, blind to anything right or good or righteous or etc. And, that's unfortunately coming somewhat common, and so that's why people are struggling so much in life, and the greed and so on like this, just greedy, there's a certain result of this dark greed, like where you have no care and no sympathy for other people, and whatever exploitative measures it takes to get what you want, you're more than willing to do that, no matter how much it's going to damage the other people. It might destroy their life completely, but that's okay. You don't care because you're so overcome with lust and greed. at any expense, you'll get what you want. To murder, to whatever, predatory acts on many different levels.
But
well, that's abominable. That's really atrocious.
One of the ugly.
Like personal habits, like eating, the wrong food, or smoking and drinking. Yeah, they're bad, and they definitely cover the consciousness and so on. But they're not as bad, so to speak. Like you say, they're ugly. They're not, on the same level as this power and this greed. I mean, look in the name of power, what has been done over human existence. People kill family members. Father kills a son, mercilessly, because that son may be competition for his control of power. He's on the throne. The son can come up and maybe overthrow him. And so he kills him, And maybe, he's got several sons, and one is very young. So the last one, when he's too old to continue on, then his young one, who's now grown up, maybe he'll let him take the power because now he's done. Whereas before, he would kill the son or sons because, they were a threat to his authority. This kind of stuff, or just mercilessly killing of enemies, not just conquering, but, unnecessarily killing and plundering and raping and destroying, just like possessed by some huge demoniac force. It's not like, okay, we've defeated this enemy now, let's call it good. No, we must destroy them completely, morally and physically and, everything. Well, that's, a really ugly situation. And it's happening all the time.
But I feel like it seems like that's just sneaking in. Because it's not. Yeah, it's big and ugly and it's really bad, but it's not so far away. Like if you start to just be, I mean, I just see it myself. Like if I start to be dishonest in my dealings, it's just so easy to slip into like the more and more dishonest, more and more using people because you get the most benefits, and you know what I mean? Like it's, in a sense, it's not so far away. Like we have that. Somehow I feel like we have it inside of ourselves, but maybe we don't. We just.
Well, that's one of the defects of human beings, is the tendency to cheat. But that's why we have rules and stops, controls, to don't let it get going. You see, once you let these things get out of hand, so to speak, or start going, like you said, you become a little dishonest and a little more and a little more. But somewhere before it got to a point of unstoppability, you recognize it and say, wait a minute, this is getting, no, I'm not going to do this. That's why we have rules and regulations in the bhakti system, checks to show you red lights. Here's a red flag, stop now. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, you must, control the senses, from the very beginning. Don't let them get out of hand and just get so far gone that you can't stop them. It's like a snowball effect. That little snowball, if you stop him right now, is nothing. But when that thing is as big as a house, there's no possibility. So if you just stand by and just let things roll downhill, then you got no chance. They've already defeated you completely. So, but an individual has to have some desire to be in this controlled condition and this refraining from, the habits, the good, the bad, and the ugly, embrace the good and the bad and the ugly, I don't want to be there. I don't want to do that, because I don't want that controlling me.
It's something so
Education. Kids learn what they learn, right? I mean, when a person is born, they don't know anything. What do they know? They don't even know how to walk. They don't know how to talk. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to do anything. But gradually, they learn more. They learn how to walk. It was already, the ability was there, but they had to practice it. They had to stand up and fall down a lot, and take 2 steps and fall on their face and get back up, and gradually they learn that, you see. But along the way, they're taught by their parents. I mean, the parents help, don't they? Oh, hold my finger. Let me help you walk. You see? And they start to fall. The parents help them get up. And, and then the parents start teaching them, oh, this is a dog, this is a cat, this is your name, and so on and so on. Parents have that position of teaching. So they also have the responsibility to teach them these truths. I mean, this is stated in Scripture. The position of a parent is to teach the child the truth about life. You are in a material body, but you're not the body. You're spirit, soul. But if the parent doesn't know that, they can't teach that. You see? And they teach the kid to chant, some nursery rhyme when they could also teach the kid to chant a mantra that is purifying. Mm-hmm. But if the parent doesn't know that, then they can't teach that. Or if they've heard it, but they don't see any value in it, they're not going to teach it, Mm-hmm. And then they teach the child proper diet. I mean, they're feeding the child from birth, so they teach from the very beginning. This is good for your body. This is not good for your body. I mean, I raised my daughter vegetarian. My mom, her mom, we raised our child vegetarian from the very beginning. It was like no question. And that's what she learned, and she never deviated from that, And wow. So you teach them properly. They know what is right, what is wrong, this is good, this is bad, and so on. And then when they get to be, a certain age, we'll say adults, whatever age that happens to be for, certain societies, then they kind of have to make the decision to continue with that education or to deviate, and go off and, I'm going to do something different. But, many times if they do go off and try the other side, they realize it's not good, it just feels wrong. There's no real, it feels, not correct because they've been trained in another way.
Yeah.
So that's lacking, And so we're getting the fruit of that. Again, deviation from the teachings of right and wrong. All scriptures teach this. This is right, this is wrong. Based on what? On God's laws. I mean, that's what the scriptures are. They're explanations of and representations of the guidance of the Supreme Lord. This is right, this is wrong, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do, and so on and so on and so on. And when you throw that away, then it becomes right and wrong is just, very, very relative. It's right because I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I don't want to do it, it's wrong. I'm the authority now. I'm the judge. You see, I make the rules. And that's a philosophy that people, are embracing and really promoting. I make the rules. I decide what I want to do. And so, therefore, this is absolutely incorrect. It's ignorance. The law of karma is still there. They are responsible for their actions. And, the result will not be good. And
but you came into something that I think would be interesting to look at, how to then help someone else who is in a bad habit, because we spoke about education, how to inspire others. There was a friend of mine that told a story about the couple. They were together. She was chanting, she was following this process, and he wasn't, and he was always into like really bad habits of drinking, and then he maybe chanted a little bit, but then like kind of fell back into the bad habits, smoking and drinking, and some illicit connections with other women as well. And at first she was like really criticizing him and trying to, like, by talking to him, make him understand that was bad what he was doing, and he should be doing this instead. But after speaking to her spiritual master, she started just like not doing that, but just focusing on her process. That was it, like her spiritual life, and inspiring him. And like he saw the happiness that she got from doing that. So he gradually started changing, very gradually, and then eventually like he was on the same page, So I thought that was very inspiring. Wow.
Yeah. And again, every situation is different. I mean, that was her situation. Sometimes you can do what she did in the beginning to a person. Just tell them, this is bad, you shouldn't do this. Like Frank, he heard about karma.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave up meat.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't have to follow some example for a long period of time.
Yeah.
He heard and he flipped the switch. Whereas, the example you're given, and I know these people, they, this took what it took. This is bad, you shouldn't do that. Didn't work. So she had to, just go about her life. I can't make his choices for him. That's his choice. And she just made her choice to follow her, sadhana, or spiritual practice. And he saw it and he changed, you see. But another point is there was enough, connection between the two. They wanted to be together enough that they were able to tolerate each other's, deviant or different paths, and still stay together. Some people, they just throw each other away, but they had enough connection with each other that even though he wasn't doing what she knew he should do, she still was patient and tolerant. And he respected her enough that he kind of followed her lead through observation and so on. So it's very individual. It's very individual. And so we have to deal with every situation as it needs to be dealt with.
I see.
Yeah. So, but regardless, if we live our life as we should with our, understanding and determination and so on, setting an example of this teaching and this lifestyle, that's what we have to do no matter what, And then if I think I can help somebody by saying, well, don't do that, and they say, okay, because they accept me as somebody of, importance that they're going to listen to, great. And if they don't, you just continue doing what you're doing anyway.
Exactly. So you don't lose anything by doing that. Like that's a baseline.
You have to do that. I mean, that's not an option. We have to live correctly. And other people can see it or not see it or inspired by it or run away from it. Or away from that.
I remember there was someone who came to our meditation class and they'd been to some other, we can just, doesn't matter, there's some other process, and she said the people there, they were doing their meditations, but like they were drinking and they were into smoking and they were into all these things, so she wasn't really attracted to that. So she it's like,
yeah. Yeah, we're so individual and, such background and so many different positions of influence by the modes of nature. And, so you can't say one shoe fits all,
But
Yeah.
I guess then that's a nice, summary. But we dare to say it. Like we need to dare to say something as well. We need to dare to stand up for what's right. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
that's
And
That's what we
those who
do.
don't want to hear it, they will just not hear it, or they'll criticize, or they'll attack and challenge, or it's always been like that. Those who speak the truth are not the most popular.
But then, like Jesus said, turn the other cheek.
Yeah. Well, maybe we better chant.
Yeah.
You
Wow, time flies. It's amazing.
You just sit down and start talking, and it goes where it goes.
It does.
Yeah.
But I this is very
We
helpful.
have the habit of chanting, don't we?
Exactly. So we know that in the end of each podcast, we're going to chant. So we do it regardless. But
That's right.
yeah.
All right. So let's do Haribo Nitai Gaur Haribo today.
Oh,
Haribo Nitai Gaur Haribo. Haribo Nitai Gaur Haribo.
Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Haribo. Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Haribo.
Haribo Nitai Gaur Haribo. Haribo Nitai Gaur Haribo.
Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Haribo.
Haribo Nitai Gaur Haribo. Haribo Nitai Gaur Haribo.
Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Haribo. Haribo, Nitai Gaur,
Haribo Nitai Gaur Haribo.
Haribo, Nitai Gaur,
Haribo Nitai Gaur Haribo. Haribo Nitai Gaur Haribo. Haribo Nitai Gaur Haribo. Haribo Nitai Gaur Haribo.
Haribo, Nitai Gaur,
Haribo Nitai Gaur Haribo. Haribo Nitai Gaur Haribo.
Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Haribo.
Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol.
Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol.
Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hare Bol,
Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur,
Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, 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 Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaur,
Hari, Hari.
Haribol.
Haribol.
Okay, ending with a little Sankirtan.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
So, yeah, so there's some ideas today about habits, good ones and bad ones. The good ones are good and the bad ones are not good.
That's the conclusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And spiritual habits are, we're always promoting, spiritual habits. So, habit of hearing, chanting, remembering. You can have a habit of remembering these truths, remembering the Supreme Lord, etc., remembering the mantras, and on it goes, So there's material bad habits, material good habits, and then there's spiritual habits, which are absolutely good. Okay, so we'll see you guys next week. Ruben, thank you very much for the what?
I don't
the
know.
Podcast.
The organizing.
Yeah, you and Slava getting it together, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
So is the next show going to be in a new location?
Yeah. Yep. This is the last time that you'll see me with this background.
Yeah, so
New but
out the
old.
window now.
Yeah.
Be looking out another window next time.
I don't know. You don't see it that much. You just see some kind of green stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, it's life. We're always changing. The material situation is constantly in flux.
Oh, yeah.
So good luck on your move, and we'll see you in your new location next week.
We will. Namaste, Valakya. Thank you.
Namaste. Namaste to everybody who's watching. Thank you very much. Haribol.
Thank you very much for staying with us, being with us today, listening in. And if you have any questions, remarks, thoughts, then please write to us and we can take it up in the future podcasts. Now, if you'd like to contribute to this show, then we have a Patreon account where you can make mini donations so that we can keep things running here and reach out to more people perhaps. So that's all we have for now, and we are going to release a new podcast next Friday. So see you then. Do share this with your friends, and remember to stay true to yourself and dare to break trail.